Everyone, I'm Caroline Hill. I'm Editor-in-Chief of Legal IT Insider, and here on Litera TV, I've got two fabulous ladies with me from Foot Anstey, which is a UK top 100 firm. I've got Tara Walsh, who is Client Solutions Lead, and I've got Carol Phillips, who's a partner in the commercial property team. Hi.
Hi, Caroline.
Thank you so much for joining me. We're here to talk about ingenuity. So I'm going to come back and introduce you properly, but just so everyone who's listening in knows what the topic is. So we're here to talk about ingenuity, which it's two things. It's something that you've been working on in real estate in terms of a different way of analysing documents and interacting with clients, and it's also a much wider approach to working with clients in terms of design thinking, that sort of thing. But we'll come on to talk all about that in a minute. First of all, to introduce you properly. Foot Anstey, UK top 100 law firm, you've got a very strong reputation in real estate, that's fair to say, isn't it?
I think we're getting there. I've been at Phillips Anstey for about nearly 4 years now, and I joined because I liked the kind of sense of energy and entrepreneurship and the ability to build something in a different way. There's always been a very strong foundation in traditional real estate. What we've tried to do is take that to the next level in terms of interacting with clients in a different way and bringing some of the experience some of us have had from being in-house into the kind of private practice context and just think about service delivery in a different way.
Yeah. And Tara, so what does Client Solutions Lead mean?
So I led the BD team at Foot Anstey when I joined, and I've always been fascinated by technology and what was coming into the legal market. So we kind of created this role, which was looking at client solutions, how we use technology to deliver the legal work, and also differentiate us from the competition. You know, the tenders that we were seeing coming in and the ITTs were all asking what law firms were doing differently. So my role is kind of bridging the gap between the clients, the legal and the technology that we have, but really working with the partners and the clients on solutions. So I've been working with Carol quite closely for the last, since you joined actually.
I think I rang Tara because someone said, oh, you want at the time I wanted a data site. They said, oh, ring Tara. Tara will talk you through it. So I asked Tara for a data site, and 2 years down the track, we developed something entirely different, but much more useful. And it was that awareness that if you act for clients who have significant amounts of property, where you're trying to bring a very kind of consistent approach to the way in which you interact with that property, so they end up with something that they know they can go into any one of their sites and all of the access arrangements will be the same. So as a lawyer, you're trying to build that thing that then looks consistent. The idea being that HiQ, as it was badged then, enabled us to make sure that that was being tracked and we were generating a consistent output for the client, and also then giving them back the ability to interact with their property portfolio on their mobile phones in the same way that they did for their banking, for whatever, all of the things you have on your phone now. Yeah. So that was the kind of thoughts behind it. But I initially asked Tara for a data site, and that was the direction we went in. So that, to me, that's where the client solutions piece comes in, is that not answering the question you're asked, but interrogating why you're being asked the question, and then doing something that actually is much more future-proofed and user-friendly going forward.
Yeah. So this was so it was 2 years ago that you started talking about ingenuity, wasn't it?
3, maybe.
Was it 3? Okay.
Yeah. So ingenuity is basically the umbrella brand for what will be a suite of client products and solutions. Yeah. And the portfolio management one that I was working with Carol and a couple of other lawyers is the first one we've launched under ingenuity, but actually it's been around for quite a while. We've just been busy working with the clients rather than taking it to market, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So tell us about ingenuity. So let's talk about from the real estate perspective first, because this is what triggered me initially speaking to you. It's something that, as you say, you've just launched. It's the first product of this umbrella brand, as you just said. So it's a new, the way I've described it, but you will describe it much better. It's a new platform for real estate clients to help them manage and analyse their property portfolio in real time. So tell me more about it.
So where we started from is we had one client for whom we did a significant proportion of their real estate asset management work from a kind of contentious and non-contentious point of view. So we digitized their portfolio in order to give them back the information around rent reviews, around break dates, so that it was automated and it would send them that information without them needing to ask us the question. Mm-hmm. Also enable them to see all of their property documents in one place, which from an internal point of view meant when you open a file, all of the information is already there. So you're driving efficiencies in our own process in terms of their lease renewals or whatever it is that we're doing for them. Also, as a traditional commercial property lawyer, 50% of what we do requires us to interact with our property litigation colleagues. And for a client, that can be really frustrating that instead of having one point of contact, you have two. So again, this was to give us back that kind of consistent approach to the client where alongside the property litigator and the property lawyer are working together on a file and they have one kind of single point of view on where a matter is. So that was Tara's proof of concept at the time, because it was a big enough portfolio that we could see the kind of the internal benefits of having it all digitized, and we could drive benefit to the client. So it works both ways.
Yeah. Tara?
Yeah, so I was just going to say, in terms of, we could see where we could create huge efficiencies, and also, kind of my background in business development is measuring ROI continually. So looking at, I think one of the first things we did was go, right, what is the current state of play with this particular client? And then let's look at that every 6 months to see that we're making progress in terms of how we're managing it, but also the feedback from the client as well. So in addition to that, we also have all of the current matters for that client. So rather than us having to do a report twice a week, they could just go onto the system and see at a glance where
they do still like a physical report. We can just export it into Excel. To them.
Because previously, and this is something that has always shocked me within the real estate sector, and this is not completely normal. So previously clients would, I mean, not really specific to you, but really often in the property world, clients don't have real visibility, do they? Like their leases, etc., their documents tend to be dotted all over the place. And my understanding is that many of them don't really understand things like, the key trigger dates, so when lease renewals, all of that kind of stuff. That's still quite normal, isn't it? I mean, it kind of, from the outside perspective, it's just unfathomable. But my understanding is that is still the normal sort of scenario as well.
It's still normal, and I think sometimes by the time they develop an awareness of where there might be a trigger date, like a break date in a lease, it's too late. Right. So it's that sending them that prompt beforehand, which I think traditionally many law firms, whilst they say we won't remind you of your break dates, as a kind of BD initiative, they did tend to, but that would be stored in Outlook, and it wouldn't, if someone left, their Outlook went with them. So it's that kind of consolidation down into one space where the client can just drill in and see if they want to run a report, they can do that. They can access our platform, or we can send them the information. And then it just means that you're part of that. What I liked in-house and what I appreciated was that as lawyers, we generally see the output. We're not involved in the thinking process or the strategic planning behind it. Yeah. And this just takes us into that gestation period that normally we wouldn't see, and makes us part of that strategic thinking with them.
And it makes it sticky, doesn't it? It's that kind of, I know that's an expression that's often used, but it means that you're valuable, not just from a, litigation point of view or when there's a transaction, but it makes it an ongoing thing, which is what everyone is sort of aspiring to.
And it used to always be the case that it was having the physical deeds that was where the stickiness was. But actually, as a client, that's really irritating. So if you have to ring up and go, I'd like to see the lease on this. Oh, we need to go to our external archive and get it for you. That's going to take 10 days. And what we're experiencing now in kind of post-COVID, we're having, it's just an issue that's come up in the last week. A number of the banks who store physical deeds for clients they won't access them because they won't send someone into an archive to pull up your title deeds. So it's driving real delay in transactions because that information is not digitized.
Yeah.
And we definitely need to get to a place where that shouldn't be something that makes life difficult for clients. That should be the easy bit, that I can just download something and there you go.
And then you can build all the intelligence on top of that.
Yeah, and I think also to add to that, we were quite surprised to your point about, you know, that these clients don't have sophisticated systems in terms of how they're storing their documents, etc. So when we even when we were trying to internally with the real estate group talk about it, there was some resistance to say, but surely they have, you know, systems in place, and you know they don't need this kind of. And actually, the more we talk to clients, we're amazed that actually they don't have these sophisticated systems, and actually what we're offering them is something that brings it all together in one place and giving them access, which is also reducing the email traffic into the firm about, you know, can you give me access to this? They can just go on and access it straight away. So
can you tell me a bit more about the platform? I think perhaps we need to dive down. So obviously, but I think I'd be interested in you explaining both logistically in terms of how you started developing the platform, who was involved, because I know obviously IT was involved as well, and also actually practically what was involved, because we talk in quite high level terms about bringing stuff together, and what does it actually mean? What did the exercise actually involve?
So initially, we kind of, there was three of us in there was me, Carol, and another lawyer, Kate New, and we basically got together, recognised the need for this particular large retailer client that we had, but also we brought in external resource to help us, guide us, because what we knew was this particular HiQ could help us significantly. It had all of the functionality that was needed to be able to manage this better. So we brought in some external resource for around 2 months or a couple of months. I can't remember how long. It was quite a while ago. But then actually we then started to develop it out ourselves. So we automated a lot of the court documents. We got them involved in helping us. We didn't really have the skills within IT at that particular time. Now that skill base has kind of improved significantly over the last couple of years. But initially it was a recognition we needed to do something to help manage clients, but also if we wanted to, and because we have a sector focus, clients are very similar in terms of if you have different retail clients with large portfolios, we could productize it to attract those clients. So we sat down with this external consultancy, worked through what it was we needed, knew that we needed to digitize their portfolio and then overlay it with the matters that we were taking on for the client. And then also on the litigation side, the litigation matters, which generally ran for a lengthier period of time, providing a digitized litigation element to the solution. And so the process was we kind of got it to a point, didn't we, Carol, that it was 80% there. We digitized the portfolio. We took the reporting that we were had to provide the client and provided that to them in a digitized way. And then we took it to the client and said, right, this is what we have done. You can access this any time of day. And then from there, we then started to evolve it with the client. So the client we talk to the client and they go, well, actually, you know what takes a lot of my time is when you send me a draft, I have to copy and paste that content into an email and write my comments. So we then developed it that we could work on the travelling drafts through the platform. So it's kind of iteratively evolved with the client from that point. So my view and with Carol and Kate was always, let's get a proof of concept that we could take to the client, showcase it to them, because it's very hard when you sit down and go, okay, what problems do you have, client? How can we help? Because it's a huge investment of time from all parties, on the legal side, on the client side. So actually trying to, we've just scratched the surface with some of these client solutions, and so we know what the issues are, and it's getting it to that point where you can take a proof of concept to a client and go, right, we've got this. How do we refine it and evolve it for your needs?
Oh, sorry, Karen.
Yeah, sorry. For me, the starting point was even when we looked at some of our client listening feedback, and it's a comment that has come up in every single firm I've worked in, which is that we think you're great, but you could be more proactive. And then when you drill into it, it's like, we are actually being really proactive, but we're not telling them that we're being proactive because we can't do the doing and do the telling. So, you keep doing the doing because that's what they're paying you to do. Yeah. So for me, it was a way of doing the doing and then having the client see that you've done it without you having to replicate that effort by sending 2 emails when actually one would suffice, and you update the platform. And I think it from talking to people in other firms, that live matter tracker is becoming more and more critical for clients, where they just want to know exactly where something is at, and this was our version of that.
In real time as well, and not having to, and presumably, and you can, so obviously that 80%, presumably they already knew that this was something that you were working on, and is that right? Or you were just thinking, we're going to be really super clever, and then we're going to go to them and say, I presume that they were on board right from
they were involved,
and then so you use it to extract the key dates, etc., obviously, and then presumably that's then, I'd love to have a demo at some point, but so presumably you then build that into some kind of workflow, I guess, or is that the sort of next step, or where are you at with that?
No, so we have a workflow. So in taking it from a reactively managing an estate, and also because Carol's role, she runs the asset management team, so her role is to run these large portfolios for clients, and the volume of matters that we have at any given stage. So to proactively start to manage it was like, okay, let's look at the critical dates coming up. Let's look at actually what we need to do as part of the matter process, so SDLT, and then build workflow behind that to say, right, 7 months out from this date, we need to send a notification, we need to create a task, we need to, produce a letter or whatever it might be. So we have the workflow already working. You obviously tweak that for each client, but it's all kind of there, so that we're in that position where we're proactively helping the client to manage their portfolio, as Carol said, rather than just doing the doing. So it has been a step change, I think.
And it means that you can tackle issues that, say, the SDLT is a good example of an issue that has arisen in the last, I don't know when they changed the timing from 30 days to 14 days, but that was a big, trying to get SDLT out of large retailers can be tricky because there's no invoice. They can't match it to any spend. So, and we have to have that, but when we submit the return, we need to have the funds to pay the SDLT, or we get into a whole cycle with HMRC where you get into chasers and late payment. And Tara helpfully built out a workflow around ingenuity that meant that my team were getting reminders to say, have you chased this down? This is coming up. Have you asked them in advance before you submit the return? Ask to be in funds, then you know that you're not going to hit this 14-day pain period. And also at the end of the financial year for one particular client, they said, can you send us a report saying all of the SDLT that we've paid? Oh yeah, that's really easy, because actually we were collecting that data as we went.
Yeah, that's really, and I like the fact this, you touched on it already, but this iterative working, and I know that we'll come on to talk about this means in a broader sense, but so I think that one of the things that both vendors and perhaps law firms that are dabbling, or that sounds a bit patronising, but who are entering product development do is they sort of say, right, we've built it, come to us, right? And then, and it's a real, I've seen sort of a bit of a step change recently, certainly amongst some of the better vendors, that they've started to say, right, well, obviously that's not the right way. And so it sounds like, it's no brainer that we should work in a sort of iterative way. How did the clients, have they responded well to that? How did that work? Did they have the time? Did they make the time? Was it practically possible, etc.?
Yeah, I think, certainly with the large retailer client, once they saw the value in what had been produced and how it was going to make their lives easier, getting them engaged was, it was kind of, we would have kind of review meetings where we would say, okay, what's working, what's not working, what do we need to improve? But from that point, I think it's been quite easy. But it's kind of, I think it's very difficult, when you look at product design or solutions, trying to get that initial investment from all parties to say, and this is why I think the proof of concept is a really good way, because you fail quickly. It's kind of quick and dirty. You go, this is going to solve this issue. Let's get a proof of concept and take it to clients. So now we spend a lot, Carol and I spent a lot of our times demoing to clients and targets on some of the solutions that we've got, because we know we've tried and tested them with other clients and they've evolved to a certain point.
Yes.
That we can productize.
The most interesting part of that conversation is invariably that they will come up with a problem that you haven't quite thought about, and it's whether or not it's how you then tweak to fit that. So it's and that from our point of view is just quite interesting intel to get from potential clients. That there are these other pain points we hadn't probably thought about because they're not things that we encounter in our daily existence. Because as a property lawyer, you deal with in-house legal, in-house estates, in-house finance. They all have very different problems. So you get that kind of overarching, we don't go in anticipating that the solution is going to fit their particular problem, because you don't, it might be something that comes out of left field that you haven't encountered before. Depends on the organization.
And I bet they love the fact that you ask, because I used to work a lot with the, well, obviously your background, Carol, I used to work a lot with the in-house sector, and one of the biggest bits of feedback was nobody asked us, nobody asked. Actually, you sort of think that would be a no-brainer, but they said law firms just don't ask what our problem is.
Yeah. And it's fascinating, isn't it? But I think that's that's the lawyer generally, they want to be seen as the advisor, and therefore they want, they think they need to have all the answers. Whereas I'm very different, asking loads of questions because I want to know what it is that's going to make a difference, or try and unpick something that either hasn't been revealed before. And, always starting with the client and then working backwards, what are we delivering to the client, and what have we got that would be useful to the client as well. So it's very different. And then in terms of, I think also that point about trying to get the client engagement is, we had another client where we did a new client. We won this huge project, which was a 3,500 lease reach.
Just to step across you there, though, that was a classic of the client sent an RFP saying, this is the problem, this is how we want you to do it, this is how we want you to present the solution. And I rang Tara and I said, I don't think we should do it that way. I don't think this is the right way to do it, because it's not going to give them what they want. And do you want to take the thread from there?
Yeah, so as part of our RFP, basically, we created a solution to help them manage this project that they needed, and we showcased it as part of our bid. So we asked lots of questions. We even spoke to the previous law firm who did the exercise to find out what the pain points were in terms of delivering this. And anyway, we showcased it to them and they loved it, and we got the gig. And then from that, they were they were just they were great. They are a great client. We're still a big client for the firm now, but from that exercise, they then said, look, you've shown us the art of the possible. We've got this massive project over here that we're looking for an end-to-end solution. And the legal part of it was only, I think I touched on this last time we spoke, but the legal part of it was only, I'd say 30% of it. And actually it was two firms. So us and another firm who were engaged, but we built the solution to help them manage this project internally with their other providers externally. So it was a real collaborative solution. And actually, I think for the client, that investment of time, because we had to sit down with them and go, right, what do we need to do? Look at the legal strategic part of it, what needs to happen, and then how do we make this run efficiently? So using workflow, etc. And that was a great project to be involved in.
And I presume that there's nothing else out there that did the job, as it were. Like, I presume that you sometimes use. Certainly within the within volume work, I'm always astonished within the insurance sector, for example, about how far they've developed case management systems. And actually, some of the stuff that we're talking about within the corporate world, they've actually done it. Like, and in terms of all of the stuff that everyone's thinking is quite cool, and the automation and the RPA, actually, they don't call it that, but they've done it in the insurance case management. And actually, I think they've just started shouting about it a bit more. But there wasn't anything already, presumably, that would have helped you within your sector in terms of existing tech, etc.
From a case management point of view, I think the tendency in property has been that there's quite a lot around the kind of conveyancing side, but to my knowledge, there was nothing that basically took that kind of property litigation, transactional real estate, and put them together and presented them in one way to the client. And certainly Kate's vision at the time, who was the third part of this triangle, was it gave the client that ability to see into your file. That actually what the client wants is just to be able to pick up your file and go, oh, that's exactly where you are. That's fine. I now feel reassured that they're doing what I need them to do. And that was our starting point, was you can see exactly what we're doing. So we're fully accountable to you, and we will make sure that everything is where you think it's going to be. Yeah. It's just to drive that trust and that kind of foster that relationship.
And I know that there's plans to do more in terms of the analytics, isn't there? So where do you see? So obviously you've already achieved a lot, and it's only just launched. And I know that there's more to do. But so what's your vision, and what can you already do, perhaps that we haven't touched on in terms of analytics, and what's the vision for where that will go?
So at the moment, we're looking at the Microsoft platform and looking at the functionality within there. So we're developing some of our solutions across the business, or the suite of products for different parts of the business, as well as looking at we've already got another product actually that we've developed within real estate that we haven't launched, but we're onboarding 2 clients at the moment with that particular product. So I think, a large part of this is just about, it's about having the information there and how we can extract that information, manipulate it, report on it. I think there's a huge benefit to clients, but also to the lawyers who are working on the ground, and for Carol and her team. Mm-hmm. So the vision really is we've got to enable what we're doing as lawyers and with clients, and their information, make it more accessible. So how can we do that? Well, obviously through using technology and
you're planning to do more with Dynamics 365, is that right?
Yeah.
You have to say a tiny bit more about that, or?
Yeah, so we're using Peppermint at the moment, who we've brought on board. So we have we've replaced our old CRM system interaction with the Microsoft. So there's lots of development, enterprise stuff happening on that side. But it's how, it's about the kind of more integration between our solution, so the finance system, how it talks to our CRM system, etc. So that it enables greater collaboration, really, just internally, but also what we present to the clients through the solutions that we deliver. And I think, there tends to be, we all know that law firms can be quite siloed, and it's the same for technology out there. The integration piece is really key, because you'll have a piece of technology that will solve one problem, but it needs to also talk to other systems. So I think whilst and that's the same as the law firms and how they're siloed.
Yeah.
We're seeing much more collaboration now between the teams because, Carol has a view on all the work that's being done for that particular client across the firm.
Yeah.
So giving her more transparency as well. So I think it's been quite a bit of change, but it's really, I'm so excited about it because it's just, I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
And I think, as usual, I've not managed our time well, and I've so enjoyed chatting to you that we're starting to run out of time. But so we should say that. So one of the things I know that was observed, which I want to mention, was that you sitting within the body of the real estate team, Tara, was really helpful. The other thing that I think came when I've talked to you before that's really interesting was the fact that that clients, because they're really responding well to this, they're now starting to recommend other clients. And I suppose just before we run out of time, we've just got a couple of minutes left. I think that so the whole, I guess I said we'd finished talking on ingenuity in terms of the umbrella meaning of it. Obviously it's across the firm, and it's about rethinking, isn't it, the way that you interact with clients. That's what it means. You're doing this. It summarizes your whole legal design approach and really sort of working with the clients. I think we've got about a minute, but if one of you'd like to finish off just talking about what it means in that broader sense, that would be great.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry, I've realised I've been talking quite a lot, but I think ingenuity in the broader sense is about bringing those different. It's taking the client listening. So what clients are telling us through that feedback, and actually rather than just going, yes, that's great, we must improve on this area or this area. It's actually taking that through the business and what we are doing to then reflect back to the client. So I think the vision is, it is about integrating the firm as a whole internally and all of the systems and the technologies that we're using to make sure that the client benefits from what we're delivering to them, and in a different way. It's just, we do think clients tell us that it's different to what other firms are doing, and that's great to hear from a client. So I think it is quite exciting.
Carol, I should let you have your.
As a lawyer, it's just asking if that's the only, if the way we've always done it is the only way, or is there a better way? What is there that's out there that's going to drive a more consistent, qualitative, a better result for the client, that is information that they can use going forward. So, we've done our piece of work, we've tied it up with a bow, and we've handed it off to them. It's how can you then use that information going forward? What is it that you're building something that is adding value for that client all the time, not just doing the same thing we've always done.
All right, well, look, I really look forward to, I agree with you totally, the integration piece is just absolutely key, and I really look forward to hearing the sort of next stage of it. So let's catch up again soon. But in the meantime, sadly, we've run out of time. But thank you both so much for your time.
Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you.
Thanks.